Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Sketchy Ideas, the live point counterpoint video podcast where we illustrate and debate concepts surrounding leadership, personal development, business, sports, bad website design, and generational gaps in a way that may make you think twice about that new idea you just learned about. What you just learned about on the internet. My name is Michael Rampolla, and with me is
Brad James.
There he is. We're your hosts, and we're glad to be here with you. Today, we're going to talk about what happens when things don't go as planned, because Brad had a chance to implement the design and implement the execution of his great event. And great events by design aren't always great events by execution, at least for sometimes moments. But we're going to talk about what do we do when that happens here in just a moment. But first, a word from our sponsors. Brad, tell us about Cream City.
Sure. So if you're struggling to get some marketing stuff done, whether it's content creation, building a website, all of that good stuff, especially if you're a small business where you're the only person and you think you got to do it all yourself, you're wrong. Do me a favor. Contact Erin over at Cream City Marketing. She's going to help you out, and you're going to get value out of just the initial conversation. I promise. Most people who go into those conversations end up leaving with a bunch of ideas and an action plan that they can even implement. So email Erin over at erin@creamcitymarketing.com, and she's going to help you out. Back to you.
Thank you. Sketch Ideas is also powered by Spirity. The unknown is preventing growing and scaling businesses from realizing their full potential. They want to make informed and intentional decisions, but they struggle because they don't know what's happening across the organization. Spear OS is a system that helps business owners know what's happening in their organization in a simple and effective way. By identifying trends and patterns, you can see what's working and not working to make more intentional and better adjustments for the growth of your business. Because once you know better, you can do better and truly realize your potential. To learn more about Spear OS and the Spirity system, reach out to us at spirity.com. And now back to the show. So Brad, how was the event?
It was good, just a little sickly.
Yeah, you
drinking some tea.
I'm getting tea. What do we have today? Is that lemon? A little lemon zinger?
Yeah, lemon ginger with some probiotics.
Ooh,
Sounds
fancy and well.
You know, sometimes rest and tea and some good old chicken noodle soup.
Chicken noodle soup.
After standing outside in the rain for 2 out of 4 days makes a difference.
That does make a difference. That does. That's a pro tip, folks. When in doubt, chicken noodle soup. Your mom was right.
Yes.
Mom was
yes.
right. Okay, so 2 out of 4 days in the rain.
Soup and tea. Yep.
And tea. And sleep when you can get it.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll try to keep the energy. You maintain. You're good. I'll double down on the energy.
Hey, energy's here. You don't have to worry about energy. Energy's here. It's actually up here, but off the screen. But that's not the issue. I mean, so the reason I bring that up is because of what happened during this event and leading up to it, which is actually what we're talking about today, in hopes of helping you all in your business, in running your events, and actually just day to day. This is we're going to walk through some details. So long story short, was working with a client, and the client needed us to staff some positions, and the partner that we were using for staffing backed out at last minute due to some restrictions and things that they had going on. So we pivoted big time. And if you're dealing with these things right now, especially when it comes to events, you might want to pay attention, because this will help you navigate at least the initial stuff and actually help you figure out what you need to do when you pivot.
Noted.
So with that being said, I would imagine that most of you have been in these situations, either if you're staffing or if something isn't going right, or anything along those lines. But I'm going to explain to you how boats, actually, we'll start with oats. Oats ties into managing chaos and getting you through those pinch moments where emotions are high, feelings are irrational, and stress seems to be making the sky fall upon you, Chicken Little.
Not chicken soup, Chicken Little. So emotions up.
Yeah.
I'm guessing time and other resources are down.
Of course.
Right.
It wouldn't be a great plot line without limited resources.
Yes, here we go. Okay, so down indicator there, emotions up. Right. Yes, we gotta have the arc, right? Gotta have one of these.
Of course. This is a great movie.
Rising.
At least that's what I'm going to explain to you today.
Problem, rising action. I just remember over here, eventually we get a denouement, one of the few French words I know.
I think we need clarification on the denouement.
Denouement.
Is that a Danish? Is that a Danish?
No,
denouement?
that would be German. Denouement, French for the tying up of loose ends, is what I believe it actually. Elizabeth is currently running this one down for me to verify if I'm full of it or not. But if the way I learned it, denouement is the part over here when like the story just kind of has to come up to a wrap and everything comes together. Not to be confused with Deus ex machina, which is when God shows up in the machine and just makes everything right again. That's a Greek tragedy thing. 2 foreign languages, and we're not even 5 minutes in. All right, Brad, bring us back. Oats. How's oats going to solve my crisis?
All right.
If you're experiencing crisis, oats. Not conventional advice.
I'm going to lead in with this. All right. So I gave you the front story, right? Where we are. Yep. Imagine it's literally the week before the event, and you're supposed to have a maximum amount of people each of the days of this 4-day event.
Makes
and
sense.
You literally have 0 on the list because your partner backs out. And when I say maximum number, I'm talking in between 20 and 40 people per day. All right.
Now you're down to 0 per day.
Correct. There's this guy, which is great. Cloning machine is still in R&D. Time machine gone. You know, all the usual things. None of these things exist.
Right.
I don't have a Tony Stark to create something crazy. I don't have any of those things figured out. You know, so let's just say, yeah, correct. You know, so we're limited to what we can do, and yeah. So I want to start with this. All right.
Okay.
So when things go awry, it doesn't matter if it's before an event or if it's in crunch time or whatever, right? I'm going to start with the oats, and then I'm going to come back to what I mean at the beginning. So oats, the first thing you need to do is just observe. And quick overview, if you're in a point of chaos, the reason you need to observe is because there's a lot of people moving around. There's a lot of stress. You just need to observe it to understand that this is where things are at and just be okay with it. Assess. A stands for assess. Now, when you're observing, you need to assess where everything is at. That means people. That means what is the problem. That means what are the emotions. That means what are the resources. You need to do a giant assessment. And within assess, that's where a lot of the understanding of the whole situation falls out, right? So after you assess, now you're going to triage, right? And what I mean by triage is because typically if you're in a point of chaos like this, it's typically not just one thing. Typically, if you're at the top, you've got managers trying to manage all these things. And what tends to happen when things go wrong, Michael? Let me ask you that question.
Yeah.
Is it just one thing most of the time?
No, because everything's tied all together. So if one thing goes wrong, something else is going to be impacted. It's a networked system, right? I mean,
so imagine this. This happened to us. We weren't the only vendor who had to tell the promoters of the event that we couldn't fulfill what we had initially agreed upon. We had multiple vendors break contract. We had multiple clients who were going to be coming, screw things up, right? There were other resources that ended up not happening, like weather. Weather's always fun.
Right.
And then we had this magical thing called COVID in the mix that throws a whole other wrench in things too along the way. So you triage. And what I mean by triage is this is where you have to work with others to understand what are the priorities. So within the situation we were in, we were supposed to bring some staffing and some stuff. So we triaged and we looked at the resources available. We looked at what was minimal requirements. We looked at what the resources were there in order to enact something. And then we also looked at time, right? Time was a big thing. So we were looking at a bunch of different things that help us triage all of these details, which then leads us to the S, which is strategize. All right.
Got it.
So if you observe, that means you're seeing it. That means you're willing to take it in. You're assessing while you're observing, which means you're going to take a bunch of notes. When you're done assessing, you then triage with your team, whether that's just you and a small group, you and the people who brought you in, you and the people below you who you're supervising. And I'm speaking in terms of hierarchy because all events are going to have a peak decision maker and levels of decision makers, no matter what. It doesn't matter if this is like a year-long event. It doesn't matter if this is day-to-day work. There just typically is a decision-making hierarchy, no matter what. And especially in times of chaos, you're going to need to have some sort of hierarchy of decision-making because there's a vision that has to be set and there's expectations that have to be fulfilled. And somebody, and this is where you can democratize it, but democratizing it in times of chaos like this tends to not work purely out of the fact of during your observations and assessment, the people who are being supervised who tend to be at the front lines of things can't get hold of the whole big picture.
Right.
They just can't because there's chaos.
Right. So they're the man in the field who knows what's happening over there. And you're getting that from them, but you're not asking them to pull up to your level. You're just saying, stay there, tell me what you see, and I'll pull all of that data together.
Yes. And that's extremely important then when you're triaging, right? When you triage after your assessment, you're going to understand who are your strongest people out there, right? Because that's going to help you triage what needs to happen, because that triaging part is the only thing that will guide your strategy at that point. You're gonna take the inevitable vision and expectations that you had at the beginning, that BHAG goal, and you're gonna go, hey, we know what the base things are. That BHAG tends to have to go out the window at that point, and you're trying to find ways to do that the quality of the event is maintained, and you're probably getting rid of some of the things that were probably the cool, what do I want to call it? The delighters that you put into place because they aren't critical to making sure that the operation goes off without a hitch.
Right.
And these are all important to understand, but at the same point in time, if you don't go into it with this idea of observe, assess, triage, strategize, you're just going to continue to have a ball of chaos. Okay. Now, the trick here is when you're strategizing, the reason I don't have execution on this is because if you're leading the event or you're one of those managers, that strategy will fall out into your execution plan. But that means you have to have it extremely clear for your people. And at the end of the day, you're going to end up trusting some of those people to make some of those smaller decisions. So in your strategy, you're building out your decision-making framework for whatever the chaos is. And then you have to trust, right? So, I mean, that's why like, when you're talking about this, observing, assessing, triaging, and strategizing, just keep that in mind, because that's all you can do at that point. Is you can strategize, and then you have to let it go, right? When you're strategizing and laying it out, you have to let it go, and just go with what's going to happen is what's going to happen.
And if I've done a good job at the earlier stages, I've identified those minimum critical items, and I'm assuming then also reestablished or reset the vision with the executors, right? Listen, I know we talked about that, and I know that was your favorite thing, but this is the thing that must happen, And that other thing's just going to have to go for now.
Yes. Which brings us back to the B, which we didn't talk about up at the top.
There is no B.
So-
Are we adding a B?
Well, we're going to add a B at the top. So this used to just be oats for me. And in the last year or two, I've added the B.
Okay.
And here's why. It goes back to a couple different episodes where we talked about state and we talked about you have to be in control first. So
Yeah.
B stands for breathe. Stands for breathe. Because if you go right into observation, your perspective on that observation is skewed. Your ability to execute this framework is skewed because you're living then in the lizard brain rather than the rational mind that we as human beings have access to. So if you don't breathe, everything else doesn't matter because you're going to end up with chaos most of the time anyway. But if you breathe, and go, hey, yep. And you get control and you align your head, your mind, it will work. I mean, because then you're accepting for what's going to happen. You know what needs to happen. You have clarity. Breathing at the beginning of this whole thing is just what's going to happen, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's really important because you made it, it was kind of there as you, it was in the subtext. If I don't do that, I'm basically, this process isn't going to change anything. It's just going to reinforce the chaos is what you're saying. If I don't breathe, what breathing does is it takes me out of what's happening long enough and far enough to get meta, to get above, to not be in the emotions that I'm assuming everybody else is being impacted by.
Well, and that's the thing is if you think about it, how many times do we go into situations and people we're looking at things, they look at it purely from their perspective. And
Right.
their perspective typically because they haven't figured out how to control their state or what their feelings are at that moment. It's very much one direction or the other, right?
Right.
Like that's why if you have to take that moment to breathe. And if you don't breathe, you're going to cause your emotions, people are interconnected. And so that energy spreads like wildfire.
Oh yeah.
Whereas if you can breathe through it and ground yourself again, and then go through these steps, people will then lay it out and people will follow. You alleviate so much anxiety, you alleviate so much stress on the furthest arms from you, right? Who have to manage their little part of the process.
Right.
That it becomes all of a sudden fun, it becomes challenging, it becomes something of a growing possibility for those individuals. And they know they're going to be backed up because all they have to do is follow the strategy.
Right. I like that. You know, that it's interesting because and it's true, we know this, right? That as the leadership style in any given situation, right, that people are going to follow where that's going. And if you're leading into chaos from chaos, then you're perpetuating the chaos, and that's going to be the energy that you're putting out there. But if I am coming at it from that place of calm, I'll have a much better opportunity to instill same calm feelings into the people I'm about to send off to execute.
Yep.
Yeah. That's key.
Yeah.
Now, so have you, I appreciate the intention you're adding here. It sounds like you didn't always, maybe there's been situations where you didn't put the B in the front. And did you then have to like come at the
Many
cycle
times.
again? Okay. Yeah.
I think it comes down to, I mean, I've shared this, my first foray into business was putting on the Fort Youth Kids Triathlon when I was age 19, right?
Right.
20. And you just go on you leverage your energy, and that energy is high, and you just work hard rather than work smart. And that typically is because you don't breathe through it at the front end. And so you don't end up doing this. You observe, you assess, you triage, and you strategize, but then that strategy ends up falling totally on you because you can't add clarity to it with words to give clear definition and clear direction to others. So I've tried to figure out, and this comes with practicing how to ground myself, because I haven't always been grounded in my approach, because we're emotional beings and that takes work for most of us.
Same. Yep.
And it wasn't until like I began to build structure around it, be able to breathe when there was pivoting that needed to happen. So with that, we
Yeah.
you just have to you have to take some time and work on that, because in chaos, right? Like, let's talk about this. When you talk about the heroic journey, right?
Right.
I mean, it makes sense why stories are written this way. There's always a breakthrough that happens, and that breakthrough happens when all of a sudden that mindset becomes, okay, I breathed through it. I understand what I need to do. I've assessed, I've triaged, and I've strategized, and I go. But it starts up here. It starts in the head. It doesn't start with the strategy.
Right. Yeah. What I'm seeing, again, going back to my story structure, if I'm not breathing, I can see that I'm going to just end up in a churn at the top. I'm going to notes to notes to notes to notes. And if I'm just going to, I like your example, right? If I am, say, young and full of energy, like if I'm a grinder and I'm just going to carry more and more weight on my shoulders, I could kind of get through it doing that, right? I'm going to drop some things and probably upset some people and stomp on some toes along the way, but ultimately it'll be great and I'll kind of be a hero. But that's not sustainable. And it's not growable,
not at
and
all.
It's not scalable. Like, you can do that once or twice, but if you don't put a better system in place to prevent yourself from basically allowing the chaos to happen to then heroically save it, like I feel like an arsonist setting fires just to put them out. Like, that's not the best way to operate, and it's not
right.
It's not how you're going to grow a business or an event or anything else for that matter. So if I recognize that growth and scale is done through others, then I need to have some method where I can get above and beyond and outside that group to better lead and manage them, as opposed to just being like the best of them. I actually need to leverage the best of them instead of being the best of them. Ooh, that came up better the more and more I said it. And I think there's an element that I'm getting in here, and I don't want to go too much into it, but I'm seeing that this is going to happen, right? This is going to happen in an event for sure. It's going to happen in basic business strategy. What enables me to be better at this, I'm looking at this and I'm saying some of these things would be served well, kind of best served in advance. If I'm prioritizing during triage, if I understand what my priorities are up here, and I pre-prioritize kind of most second, third tier, then I can already know what my delighters are and be ready to drop them more easily, in a sense.
Right.
If I've identified, here's the number one critical thing that must happen, then if and when I get to a triage mode, I can point back to that and say, what do we need to do to make that happen? And then the rest either will or won't happen, but it doesn't matter because I already know the priority.
Correct. Yep. Yeah.
And there's no letter I can add to the front of boats to still keep it a word. So I'm just going to have to say this is a pre-process. So boats is the process in the middle.
But I mean, it's not. I mean, because if you just breathe, you don't need. I don't know why you need that.
Well, I mean, I need it from a priority setting standpoint.
Yeah, but in times of chaos, right? So this is used for managing chaos.
Specific.
If you don't have. Yeah. So it doesn't matter, even if you're not in charge, maybe you're not the one setting the expectations. Maybe you're not the one doing it. If you're just in chaos, all you need to understand is breathe, observe, assess, triage, strategize. Then once you have that, you've got a solution. Now you're just going and running it. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying.
No, that's good.
You can have all that pre-planning, but this is where planning falls out the window, right? Planning, this is where plans suck. Plans suck. So when you have this, I mean, because we deal with this, even if you're dealing with it on a daily basis, right? Like parents, I don't, and I'm not a parent yet, right? But at home, when things don't go as planned, right? Like getting here to the facility today, to the studio, right? And there's legging
Yeah.
obviously on this video. But I'm around where the office is, the home office, there's construction going on. It literally, I could not get out. So I had to breathe. I observed. I made an assessment. I triaged the thoughts and the priorities. I strategized how to get out, and I got here, right? Like this is just a framework for managing when things don't go as you had hoped or had planned, period. Because if you're not willing to do that, you're always just going to get angry.
Yeah, I'll get self-aware on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like this is where if you are constantly the person who's just like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work, man. I mean, this year, I mean, you know this, right? So many things of chaos have happened. So many things.
It's true. Yeah. So, okay, because it's funny because you're mentioning this traffic, and my brain went to like park the car and walk, because that would have been my unbreathing option. Would have been like,
right.
I can't go anywhere. F it. Like I'll just leave the car. Like where? Like I'll get out and start walking, and then literally I would probably just leave the car wherever it is, like in the middle of traffic, whatever. Like I would. Yeah, like that's oats without
not
the
smart.
B. No, it's without the B. I admit this right. Is the unb, the plan without the B, or the oats without the B.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing.
Yeah. I mean,
it's not even a plan B. It's a plan without a B.
3 deep breaths goes a long way. 1 deep breath goes a long way.
It's true.
Oxygen, friends. Oxygen is good for your brain.
Noted. Key critical resource. Oxygen. Step 1. I love it. I love it. This is really good. Okay, so thanks for kind of pulling me back from, I don't know if I was trying to make it more complex, but I'm thinking about in the middle of this, but okay, if I pre-prioritized and I've already, have some contingency options in place, this is beyond plan B. This is at plan C/chaos. This is not contingency plans. We're past our contingencies.
Yeah, I mean, and more often than not, your contingencies aren't going to work all the time either, right? They're good to have.
Fair.
But I only go, if I'm going to start building contingencies, I'm going to make sure they set up. And if they're set up, that means they're supporting some of those other delighters already, right?
Sure.
So if I have the contingencies are already in use in order to improve and hopefully get to that BHAG, that big, hairy, audacious goal. But if they're there, great. Now I can reuse them into plan B and plan C. But more often than not, when you're in chaos and you're in mode of chaos, chaos means chaos. Chaos means everything's been thrown out the window along with the kitchen sink. And so you're just at a point where you're trying to pull everything together. And this is where if you're a manager, this is where leadership comes into play. This isn't even management anymore, because the breathe and the strategize, those two things come under the leadership skill set, because you have to have that, because you're going to have to clearly communicate the changes and support the people, especially because they're going to go and execute, and it's not going to be 100%. And that's a leadership thing, not a management thing.
That's true. That's a good clarification, because it's, I think, and again, because I literally didn't experience chaos we're describing, from your most recent examples, I'm still somewhat I've been there, but I wasn't at this one, right? So I'm still somewhat in this kind of ideal state where it's theoretical, and I'm going to have backup plans and contingencies, and I'm forgetting what it's like, because I've also been there where it's like, oh, okay, and now what, right? And when you're bubble gum and paper clipping things together, because that's where we're at.
Duct tape, wire hangers go a long way.
Thank you. Right. That's why I always, I'm a MacGyver inspired. There's a reason I always carry the pocket knife. Why do you need that? I don't know why I need it. That's why I have it. That's the point. The point is I don't know why I need it. Yeah. Anyway, because that's chaos by definition. All right. I love this. So oats becomes boats, and we all go sailing off into the sunset.
I figured we'd stick with the boat theme since we already had the 4 seats. So
I love it. No, I am picturing your, award-winning T-shirt design. As soon as you said boats, I mean, like I told you, I literally went to. You had to go to boats. Like your transportation options really were limited. But no, I mean now that we're getting back to Brad's drawing skills, I'm happy. And anytime we can bring up Brad's drawing skills, I'm happy. Brad's gonna draw the boat. I set him up. He's gonna draw the boat. There it is. Here's the water. We got colors this time. Here's the water. Here's the boat. There it comes. Look, it's even in the water. It's among the winds. There's the mast. There's the sail, apparently, which I don't know how much wind it's going to catch, but it's there. That's
remember, this picture won a competition. Don't judge me.
Competition. It did.
Yeah, it did. Remember, I told you about it.
I know. I remember, Brad. You could, and no one can take that away from you.
Nobody can. Oh, I almost forgot.
Nobody wants to take that away from you, but nobody can.
There were fish in the picture too.
That's right, the fish. Because he was fishing, right? Isn't there a fish and a line and a?
See the fish?
Make sure we get all the details.
Yeah, you can laugh all you want.
You know what? I am not going to try to compete with that. I'm not going to try to compete with that. I'm just going to.
Y'all make fun of my artistry.
I don't make fun. I don't need to. Folks, I think that's the end. Wow. He said it. I should probably get to the script so I can wrap us up before I say anything else that's mildly offensive. Folks, you just learned all about boats, the acronym, and boats, the drawing, so that when you are managing events and things don't go as planned, you can shift to chaos leadership and save the day, but not only of your own accord, by the way that you breathe, observe, assess, triage, and strategize so others can execute on the vision and achieve amazing outcomes. There you go. In next week's episode, I don't know. I got a couple ideas. Brad, any ideas? What do you want to do?
I want to get my voice back for sure.
Yeah, okay, so step one. In next week's episode, health and wellness, herbal tea recommendations. Now taking your suggestions in addition to chicken noodle soup. What else should Brad try? Drop us a comment. What else should Brad try to soothe his aching voice box? And also, I'm just going to give you a little bit of teaser. We might be coming out with some bonus episodes. I don't know. They might be dropping. We'll see if those come out. If they do, that'll be cool. And if they don't, then they don't, because they're bonus. And so you can't really get mad at me for not doing something that's a bonus. In the meantime, send us your questions, send us your ideas, send us your herbal remedies to info@sketchyideasshow.com. Tell Elizabeth all the things you want us to talk about and where you'd like us to go. And she will let you know what she thinks about those ideas as well. Come back next week when we go over more sketchy ideas live. And remember, just because it's a sketchy idea doesn't mean it's not worth exploring. We'll see you next time.